Hi, this is Magda from Wnętrza ze Wnętrza. In this episode, I'm sharing another update on the full renovation of a studio apartment in a tenement house. In the previous episode, I told you that we're still waiting for the plumbing installation to be checked by a second plumber because we have some concerns about the installation. And once it's checked and we know it's okay, we'll close up the walls, lay the tiles, and everything will look beautiful. But that's about it when it comes to planning anything during a renovation. There's a saying, if you want to make God laugh, tell him about your plans. So that's basically the scenario we have here, because when the second plumber came, it turned out that a lot of things were wrong. Of course, you can be used to the fact that different professionals criticize the work of others, and the ones before always did a worse job. And, like here you could have done it wrong, but of course in different words, so I approached it with a bit of distance. But still, that second plumber explained various things very reasonably. And that also matched our doubts, our observations, because that installation was simply done very, how should I put it, sloppily. And when you see that something was done so carelessly here, and here too, and over there as well, your words were ignored here, and then there's some problem, so it needs to be fixed. Well, you can have doubts, right? So we had those doubts here, and then the second plumber, not only confirmed our doubts, but actually reinforced them, and even added new ones. One of those issues was the matter of the drain. The water needs to have the right slope to flow, and while in the kitchen area the slope was quite steep, in the bathroom area it was minimal. And of course that raises doubts when you look at the pipe and it seems almost flat. But actually, in plumbing installations, pipes are often made with a very small slope of about 2%, and in fact many sources say that 2% is the recommended slope. And to the naked eye it really looks like it's almost not there, but it actually is, and those sources say it's okay. There were a lot of concerns about the drain pipe, which here in the kitchen area had quite a steep slope, steeper than it is now, and in the bathroom area it was almost flat. And before, obviously it raises some doubts when you look at it with the naked eye and the pipe seems flat, but I've already come across the fact that in plumbing installations there can actually be a slight slope. Some sources even recommend a slope of 2%, which to the naked eye really looks like there is no slope at all. Because that's 2 centimeters per meter, so if you have a distance of 1 meter, and here it's only 2 centimeters lower than in the other place, it really looks like the pipe is just lying flat. But there is a slope, everything drains well, and it's even recommended by some people. The thing is, the slope alone isn't everything in the installation. It's also important how the pipe is laid out, how many bends and twists it has. Where the water flows into it from, there are a lot of different factors. I still don't feel like a plumbing specialist, but in the meantime, I've managed to educate myself a bit more. And that second plumber also pointed out issues like, for example, a bend in the corner where the pipe was at a 90-degree angle, so if it ever got clogged and you had to push through it with a spring, it wouldn't work. Because the turn is too sharp too far in. So, it could work, but if there was a problem, it could be a bigger problem than it should be. And it's also like, if the water has a small drop but just flows through a straight pipe, then it's okay. But when there are a lot of bends, each bend is a potential risk, a place that can get clogged more easily than just a straight pipe. And our plumbing setup here was a bit overly complicated. I have the impression that the plumber, the first one who did it, was just using whatever he had on hand and making something out of it. And not that he was choosing pipes based on the plumbing plan, but rather the plumbing plan depended on whatever pipes and fittings he happened to have on hand. What's more, it turned out that it wasn't done properly. The venting, the whole frame of this concealed cistern, it was all already installed and you couldn't see what was inside. So luckily we took it apart and it turned out there was no venting, which also makes the water flow worse. No, I mean with the toilet it could have been really bad. There are these vents that you can just install inside, like in the apartment. You don't have to run any big pipes, but here the thing was that there was a pipe from the old vent and you could connect to it, but it was cast iron and apparently there was some problem with connecting to it. So the second plumber recommended just installing an automatic air admittance valve and leaving that pipe alone. But the first plumber didn't do it, he didn't do anything, there was no vent. So to sum up this whole story, we decided that we would redo everything from scratch. Because if you have to fix something here, fix something there, there are some bends, and if we wanted to fix it piece by piece, it would actually be harder than just doing everything from scratch. And like I joked that I'll probably do the next plumbing job myself because there's just too much stress with a professional when they do things wrong, and you can see it. So I jinxed it, and now this pipe has already been laid by us. So it happened. I have to be careful what I say because clearly words have a lot of power. And just like it was easier to replace the drain pipes entirely, in the case of the pipes supplying hot and cold water, where the water is under pressure, it matters less how the installation is routed. So theoretically they could stay, and we'd only replace them only where they were leaking. It's just that they were routed right next to the drain pipe, so to raise the drain pipe a bit, we still had to move the hot and cold water pipes. And as a result, everything had to be redone, and laying the hot and cold water pipes is still ahead of us. So far, we've only laid a few pipes here at the beginning, we glued some things together, so we already know how to use the pipe fusion tool. Success! And I have to tell you that although in general the pipe fusion tool is actually quite a simple tool, you just put the pipes onto the heated tool from both sides for a moment. You take them out and stick them together, so it's really not rocket science. The main thing is to have a good sense of timing and to press them in properly and not to burn yourself in the process. It's good to wear gloves. Still, there are places, for example at heights, where I can't imagine doing this alone, because there's already a pipe on the wall and you have to attach a new one to it here. And the pipe fusion tool has to be in between, at a height, so that both parts can be welded at the same time. So you have to hold the pipe fusion tool and the bottom pipe, let's say. The top pipe is already mounted, so you don't have to hold it, you just need to press the pipe fusion tool against it. Well, it could be done now that I think about it, but it's difficult. It's definitely easier with two people, and this is one of those renovation situations that convinces me that renovations are definitely easier with two people. Just like some professionals work alone. And well, I understand that often it's simply a matter of budget, but they insist that you have to be strong, independent, able to do everything yourself. But the result is that they spend a lot of time on things that would go quickly if someone just handed them something, if someone just held something for them. No, there's less of that making things up as you go, so I'm surprised that so many people like to work alone. In my opinion, working in pairs is just right. Nevertheless, getting back to the topic, now we have to lay the pipes. The holes have already been cut higher up, so they won't be close to the sewage pipes anymore. The sewage pipe, on the other hand, went along the bottom, in the opening where the hot and cold water pipes used to be as well. And I feel that the slope we have now, which is about 5%, is still quite small, but it's much, much bigger than the previous one. So I have doubts whether it was 2% before, or maybe even less. And that would really be a problem if it stayed that way, so we did it. And I also thought for a long time about what kind of slope to make, because if you search online for what slope you should make for a drain pipe, from a sink, from a wash basin and so on, It says 2% is ideal. 2% is fine, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but 2 is just right, and they warn you not to make it too much. Meanwhile, I also talked to some experienced people, and also that second plumber said that a bigger slope is better, that 2 is the minimum, so some say that 2 is the minimum, and it's better to have a much bigger slope. Because the water flows faster, but on the internet they say it's better to have a smaller slope, around 2%, so the water doesn't flow too quickly, but rather at an even pace. So what should I think about that? Luckily it turned out that we have to make it 5 anyway, so that everything drains well here. We connected it to the washing machine drain pipe, and everything fit on this partition wall. And actually, 5 is more than 2%, but not too much, so it fits within everyone's recommendations, so it turned out perfectly. The plan was to finish the entire installation last weekend, and it was definitely doable. 1 day for chiseling and laying the sewage pipes, the next day for welding the hot and cold water pipes. We probably could have managed it. The thing is, as it often happens during renovations, something surprised us, and that something was a cast iron pipe that was here. It didn't serve any purpose anymore because it was an old vent that wasn't used by anyone anymore. It could have served us, but the first plumber didn't install any vent at all, and the second plumber said to just ignore that pipe because it's old, and suggested we install an automatic vent instead. So there was this cut pipe hanging there that didn't lead anywhere, so we could just get rid of it to make more space for the pipes, and that's what we decided to do. The thing is, when we started cutting it so that it would end higher up and not down here so low, it started sliding down towards us. And the cast iron pipe isn't light, and it had some kind of hooks. Actually, along its entire length, it had just one hook that was barely holding onto the wall, and at the bottom it was supported by some bricks that had just been wedged in. So once we moved it, it started to slide down, first a little, then more, and it was dramatic. We didn't know what to do with it. We ran up to the attic and saw that the pipe was just sliding out of the chimney on the roof. And it was a disaster. We couldn't hook it onto anything because it was incredibly heavy, and we didn't have any good hooks for it. On the other hand, we couldn't just leave a hole in the roof because there was a chimney there. It was a disaster. That was a truly terrifying moment. At first, we tried to prop it up with something so that it would stay in place at the attic level into that chimney. But we were also worried about what would happen if some water got in through the chimney, and what if that water started leaking out down here? Well, it couldn't be like that either. By the way, that's exactly what would have happened if we had left the installation the way it was. So that would have been bad. So we decided to take out the whole pipe because it was too heavy to attach it to anything properly, and we'll replace it with a plastic one. And then we realized that since we're already putting in a different pipe and it's plastic, which will be easy for us to connect, we can make a proper vent with a chimney on the roof instead of just an automatic vent inside the apartment. So in fact, it all worked out perfectly. It's just that we weren't prepared for it. So again, a few hours spent struggling with that pipe and coming up with a solution, going to the store for extra things. Half a day went by easily. There was so much work, running up and down, trying things out, trying to fit that pipe into the end of the chimney in the attic, lifting it here, trying to hook it somehow. Wow, that was crazy and very stressful. When that pipe started slipping on us for the first time, I just burst out laughing because laughter is my reaction to stress. And I was already so overwhelmed by the problems with that plumbing installation that the cast iron pipe falling on us was just the cherry on top of the whole drama. But it actually turned out for the best, because now there's a really nice vent pipe. It goes up to the roof. Everything's perfect. If any water gets in there, it flows down to the sewage system. The installation is perfect, just as it should be, exemplary. Right now we're getting ready to install this, the outlet for the shower faucet installation. See, there's already the right spacing here for hot and cold water. But installing this is a bit of a challenge, both horizontally and vertically, especially when there's a curve here, a wall. So we'll have to even it out a bit and figure something out. And because of that, it will take more time than it might seem at first. However, it will be even. Previously, it turned out that the hot and cold water outlets were at different heights, and honestly, none of us noticed it. I wasn't there when the installation was inspected, but later I also spent quite a lot of time here and I didn't notice at all that there was such a big difference in height. And when the second plumber came and put a level on it, I almost fainted. Because later, well, there are probably some ways, but it's not that easy to level it out to install the shower faucet. That's why now, on the recommendation of the second plumber, we decided to go with this system. And here the pipes will go, then here, there. Oh no, not there, that's the old recess. Here they will go down, and from there they will run along the bottom to the bathroom sink and then onto the kitchen. So from here on it will be easier. The hardest part is just making it even. And once we get through this, I think it will go pretty smoothly after that. Although we have the same ones for under the sink and under the wash basin, but there it's not really necessary for them to be perfectly level. Because for the sink faucets, the lines go down anyway, so it doesn't matter. But on the other hand, the pipes will be able to run straight, so everything can just flow through them. There won't be any bends there, so that also has its advantages. With the sink, the basin, and also the connection to the washing machine, so there's still a bit of work left, but I hope this time nothing will go wrong for us. Nothing will surprise us and everything will go smoothly. Keep your fingers crossed so that in the next episode I can show you the finished walls and maybe even the tile installation. I really hope so, and I can't wait, as long as nothing surprises us anymore, at least not in a negative way. Let me know in the comments what stressful situations happen to you during renovations or construction, because renovations are generally one of the most stressful events in life. And situations full of stress almost always happen. Almost always. Because of course there are some lucky people out there. But still, different mishaps, various problems with contractors, unexpected situations, and surprising costs are very common. And it's also the case that if you have to live in an apartment where renovations are ongoing or during the time of the renovation, you stay with family or you live in a rented apartment, having to pay off a loan and pay for that rented place. At the same time, that makes the budget very, very tight, so situations that drag out the renovation are even more stressful. It's a bit easier for me because after the renovation I come back to a clean home where I feel at home, so the renovation taking longer isn't really that much of a problem for me. The fact that I get involved and experience every situation here is kind of my own personal matter. But the truth is, I love interior design and renovation topics. Good morning, welcome to my interior and renovation channel, and I'm interested in it and I already have some experience. I'm still a total beginner, but I do have some experience, so it's much easier for me. Fortunately, once the renovation is over and we see the results, we usually block out all that stress from our memory. And we can talk about all those different stories more casually and with laughter. Not always, but that's often the case. So if you're going through some kind of crisis right now, just remember, it will get better later. Take care, subscribe, like, and see you next time. Bye. And this is a heat sealer. It heats up here, but right now it's turned off so I can touch it. And here you put in one tube. Here the second one, actually you put the tube here and here goes the other element. See, there will be a tube here. Oh, inside. And here there will be an elbow, for example, and the elbow is welded inside. the pipe on the outside because the pipe goes in here. Now I can't push it in because when it's heated up, well, you have to push it in there. The plastic spreads out a bit to the sides. And then 1, 2, 3, we pull it out. And we push one into the other. After a moment, it's ready. Ta-da! That's the idea.